Hi and welcome. In this segment, we're going to be looking at part 2 of the living trust, what the trust can own. One of the first things we'll need to determine is whether or not that property is separate property or marital property. If it is separate property, it's either been acquired or inherited during the time the person was single. And if it's marital property or joint property, it was acquired during the time the person was married. And that'll make a difference on how it is titled inside of the living trust. One of the most important things to put into your living trust right away is the personal residence. However it's owned by you currently, it can be transferred into the living trust to be held inside there. That way, it escapes conservatorship and probate upon your eventual death. Next, you'll want to put in your personal checking and savings accounts into the living trust, where the trust actually becomes the owner. So you'll go down to the bank once your living trust has been signed and notarized, and then you will transfer the ownership of those checking and savings and CDs and so forth over from your personal name over to your name as the trustee of your own living trust. And you'll sign a new signature card. And after your name, you'll put a comma, trustee. That way, you're designating the trust as the owner of that checking and savings account so that in the event of your medical disability or your death, those accounts won't have to go through probate. Your living trust can own the stock of corporations, whether it's your own business or someone else's business. It can own private stock and it can own public stock. Of course, if it's private stock, that would include the use of the subchapter S corporation. To be able to own shares in a subchapter S corporation, the living trust would have to have certain provisions drafted within the trust agreement. And when I draft a living trust, I always put that in to give the trustee, which is you, the maximum flexibility so that if you are a qualified subchapter S corporate shareholder, so can your living trust be a qualified shareholder. Additionally, your living trust can own all or a percentage of any limited liability company. Now, I've done a separate video about limited liability companies, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to watch it. Now, as you may know, over the years, I've worked a lot with small business owners and investors who wanted to hold their companies in either corporate form or in the form of a limited liability company. If you are a real estate investor, an LLC is an excellent way to hold rental properties for long-term income. Now, in addition to any stocks or bonds or checking and savings accounts or CDs or corporate stock or membership interests in LLCs, your living trust also ought to own your personal property, such as the tools in your garage, your toys like jet skis, camping equipment, your boat, and so forth. You want to avoid probate on those things as well, so have them owned inside the living trust. Now, in planning ahead for the long term, you might want to think about having your living trust own a certain percentage of a limited partnership, like a family limited partnership, or the more advanced version, the limited liability limited partnership, which I address separately in a video called the Triple LP. Now, there's two different ways to get assets into a living trust, either by deed if it's a real estate asset, or by an assignment if it's a personal property asset like stocks or bonds or mutual funds or LLC memberships, that kind of thing. Fairly easy to get it in there, but it's important to get it into the living trust if you want to avoid conservatorship and probate on those assets. And of course, if you've got paper assets, for example, let's say people owe you money and they have signed a promissory note. You can transfer that by means of an assignment over to the living trust. Let's say that you have a copyright, a trademark, or some type of patent. Those can be transferred to your living trust to escape probate at your death and pass on to your heirs so that they can have the financial benefit long after you're gone. Well, there you have it. We've looked at the living trust from a couple of different perspectives in terms of what it is, how it functions, and now what it can own. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. And in the next episode, we're going to look at who should be your successor trustee, a critical decision that you cannot take lightly. I'm Michael Potter, and I look forward to hearing from you.